In this edition of the Red and Blue Political Roundup, the Treasury Secretary is formally refusing to hand over the president's tax returns. Stephen Mnuchin rejected Democrats' request Monday. That was the deadline set by the House Ways and Means Committee. They originally wanted the information last month. However, the request was delayed so Mnuchin could consult with the Justice Department. And he did. In a letter to Chairman Richard Neal, Mnuchin says he relied on advice from the DOJ. He determined, quote, the committee's request lacks a legitimate legislative purpose. Therefore, he won't comply. Mnuchin added the request presents serious constitutional questions, the resolution of which may have lasting consequences to all taxpayers. Hunter Walker joins me now from Washington. He is a White House correspondent for Yahoo News. Hunter, thanks for being with us. Secretary Mnuchin also called this request unprecedented in that letter to Chairman Neal. So if this hasn't been done before, do we know what happens next?
Well, Democrats on the committee have talked to me, and they were preparing for a fight, as early as the beginning of this year. What I've heard is that they are optimistic they ultimately will get the returns, but they think it's going to take a long time because they know that there are going to be roadblocks along the way. So, what I'd heard from Congressman Beyer of Virginia was that he expects they will get them, but it will be after the 2020 elections. So this may not be the, giant explosive weapon against Trump that some are hoping it will be, but they certainly were expecting a long and tortured process here.
Right, but legal fights, they do take a lot of time, so it'll be interesting to see how that develops. But there was another deadline, Hunter, that the Trump administration did not meet Monday. Attorney General William Barr refused to hand over an unredacted version of the special counsel's report. House Democrats will now vote to hold the Attorney General in contempt. What should we expect there?
Well, in the past couple hours, we've seen the Justice Department try to make a compromise, if you will, and offer a less redacted version of the Mueller report, less redacted than what we've all seen. So that would not be what Congressman Nadler is asking for. He's head of the committee, which is the fully unredacted report and all the underlying evidence. So we'll see if they accept that compromise. But I would guess we're moving towards a contempt vote. I think one thing that's really important to keep in mind here is this situation is not unprecedented at all. We did see former Attorney General Eric Holder held in contempt for refusing to provide documents Republicans were requesting in 2012 with the so-called Fast and Furious scandal. And, it was sort of business as usual. He obviously, as we know in hindsight, did not go to jail, and he was able to continue serving.
Right. Well, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham is the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. He has a different take than his Democratic colleagues in the House, not surprisingly. But here's Senator Graham on Monday.
I think it's a political decision. It's probably going to backfire. He came before our committee. He was asked a lot of questions, and I don't blame him for not wanting to submit to an impeachment-style hearing where you have a private counsel. That's a very rare thing for cabinet members to go through, so I don't blame the Attorney General for not wanting that process.
So, as Graham suggested, could this backfire on Democrats?
Well, I think the one thing that is overarching through so much of what we're discussing right now is, Democrats are pushing to investigate the president. They are requesting documents. Trump officials are blocking those requests and fighting against them. And I think the one thing we know for sure is there's going to be a lot of legal battles ongoing between now and the election. Will voters decide that Democrats are being overly political? Time will tell.
Well, Congress is also asking for Bob Mueller to testify. The hearing could happen as early as next week. Do we know where those negotiations for his appearance stand?
I'm not sure. As usual, Mueller's spokespeople are being quite mum, but this is really, really important to Democrats. I spoke to one, pretty senior Hill aide who was saying to me that what they want from this Mueller testimony is a quote-unquote visual representation of his report. They know that a lot of the American people did not read the full 448 pages. One of the end games to all of this pursuit of Trump records and all of this public testimony may be impeachment, and bringing in Mueller is really a crucial first step. So it'll be interesting to see whether the Democrats are able to achieve that and also what they do if they're blocked, as it is so crucial to all of their plans.
Well, from one negotiation to another, U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer told reporters Monday Over the course of the last week or so, we've seen an erosion by commitments by China. Do we know what Lighthizer is referring to here, and what are the big disagreements still being negotiated by the parties involved?
It's not 100% clear. One thing that analysts are speculating about is that the strong economy may have emboldened the Trump administration to take this tariffs fight to the next level because, this does cause the markets to dip quite a bit, and maybe they thought they had the breathing room for him to increase pressure and potentially get a trade deal seen as a victory ahead of the election. So there could be some strategy here, but I think that one thing that's super important is we see the president tweeting that, these increased tariffs have really helped the U.S. economy and saved us a lot of money. Experts don't necessarily agree on that. There's a lot of data indicating that the costs from these tariffs are actually passed from Chinese suppliers onto American manufacturers and consumers when the prices of these goods coming from China are raised, and that this passage of the costs causes the American economy to be hurt a little bit. So I think some of, whatever happens next, some of the Trump administration's rationale for these tariffs is not necessarily correct.
Right, and those results that you're talking about are precisely the reason why some had so vociferously opposed the idea of tariffs in the first place. All right, Hunter Walker. Hunter, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.